Scary Short Story 14. I Was Followed. After my recent divorce, I found myself at a crossroads in life. As a middle-aged man, I needed a way to reset everything. That's when I decided to take my RV and set off on a cross-country trip. Just me, the road, and whatever lay ahead. It seemed like the perfect way to find some clarity, or at least a distraction. I'd been driving for days, each mile unraveling the knots of my old life. One night, after a long day's drive, I found myself pulling into a rest stop. There were a few trucks parked, their drivers likely asleep in the cabs. Other than that, the rest stop was mostly deserted. I felt like it was a good place to retire for the night before getting back on the road first thing in the morning. I stepped out of my RV to stretch my legs, feeling the stiffness of the long drive. It was refreshing to be able to stretch out and take a deep breath. As much as I loved that RV, putting away hundreds of miles at a time eventually takes a toll on you. I remember stepping around and looking at my Arizona license plate. It indicated to me just how far away from home I was, and for a short moment, it reminded me of the life and chaos I had left behind. Turning around, I walked out a ways and looked out over the landscape, trying to stay in the present as much as I could without bringing up thoughts of the past. It was nice to have some peace after the storm of my divorce. As I continued to walk, a car pulled in on the other side. It was an old sedan, dark and nondescript, but something about it immediately felt off. It had a presence. There was something about it that seemed like trouble. I'm not one to typically judge a book by its cover, but there was just something about this car that got my guard up. It parked a few rows away from my RV, backing into an angle in such a way that it was partly hidden in the darkest corner of the parking lot. The windows were tinted, making it impossible to see who was inside. I paused, watching it for a moment. In a place as empty as this, any new arrival was noticeable. Returning to my RV, I tried to settle in for the night. I made myself a small meal and played on my phone for a little bit. After about an hour or so, I finally got into bed and went lights out. After about 15 or 20 minutes, I began to feel like I was hearing things outside of the RV. Like whispers and the soft crunch of gravel, as if someone were walking around outside. But each time I peered out the window, the rest stop was dark and still. There was no sign of movement, or anything else out of place. I told myself it was all in my head, the result of too many hours on the road and too much time alone with my thoughts. Eventually I was able to settle in and get some sleep. Morning couldn't come soon enough. I was eager to get back on the road and head for my next destination. As I meandered around the RV, getting prepared for the day, I saw something that was oddly out of place. A $100 bill, neatly folded and tucked under my windshield wiper. What in the hell is that doing there? I thought to myself. Was it a gift, a mistake, or maybe something else? Maybe somebody found it outside of the RV and thought it was mine. With what little cash I carried with me, I never carried anything larger than a $20 bill, so I knew it wasn't mine. My mind raced with possibilities of why it was there, or who could have put it there. I went to the RV door, intending to retrieve the bill. But as I touched the handle, something hammered at my sixth sense. Something felt wrong, dangerously so. In that moment, every instinct screamed at me not to step outside. Instead, I started the RV and began to pull away, leaving the $100 bill right where it was. As I pulled away, I remembered the sedan from the previous night. I checked my side mirror as I began to move, and sure enough, it was still there. As I began to put more and more distance between it and myself, I watched it closely for any movement. It remained motionless. A small sense of relief washed over me as it got smaller and smaller in my mirrors. But then, just as I was about to take my eyes off of it and put my full attention on the road ahead, it lurched forward, slowly at first, but then turning to the point where all I could see was the front of it. It was following me out of the parking lot. A hint of dread pricked at me, but I tried to tell myself that it was just coincidentally leaving at the same time that I was. It wasn't actually following me. But as I drove down the road, the sedan trailed behind. It was always 3 or 4 cars behind me. When I slowed, it slowed. When I sped up, it sped up. Was this about the divorce? I thought to myself. Had my ex sent someone after me? So many thoughts ran through my mind as that $100 bill stared at me through the windshield. In a bid to confirm my fears, I took an abrupt exit off the highway. The sedan followed, its intentions now unmistakably clear. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what to do. The thought of being followed, potentially targeted, was overwhelming. I was alone, vulnerable in a way I'd never considered before. I knew that there was a small town just up ahead. I rerouted my GPS for the local police station and headed there, hoping the presence of law enforcement would deter my pursuer. The sedan continued to follow, but as I pulled onto the street with the police station, it hesitated. It's as if its occupants knew where I was going. Then, as I made my way into the station, with a surge of acceleration, it sped off, disappearing down the road. Sitting in the safety of the police station parking lot, I tried to process what had happened. Finally feeling safe enough to step out, I retrieved the $100 bill. It was a fake. It was as worthless as a grocery store receipt. It had definitely been a trap, meant to draw me out of the safety of my RV. I reported the incident to the police. "You're the third one in 5 months to report something like this," they said. "Like you, the other two were smart enough not to take the bait. They probably saw your plates and knew you weren't from around here and took you for an easy target. You would have probably been jumped if you had gotten out." The revelation made my skin crawl. I finished giving the police my statement, left, and never heard anything about it again. I continued my journey with a newfound wariness. I kept thinking about the sedan, the fake $100 bill, and what might have happened if I had stepped out to retrieve it. My trip had started as a quest for solitude and healing, but in the end, it had turned into a stark reminder of how unpredictable and potentially dangerous the world can be.